All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody, wherever you may be watching us from. This is Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. This is Jackie Hernandez, my co host tonight. Welcome,
Hi,
Jackie.
everybody. Hi, everybody. Last week I wasn't here, but I'm here with you today. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so much to talk about. Where are you at nowadays? What part of
I
the
am
city are you in?
I am in Northeast LA.
Northeast LA. Well, welcome. I am broadcasting tonight from East Los Angeles. So I want to say welcome to everybody. Just a lovely, lovely Sunday evening tonight. Weather was beautiful. People, going all about stores, eating, hanging out with family. Just a beautiful Sunday afternoon tonight and tonight as well. But there's a lot to talk about tonight, Jackie. We just want to be able to welcome our audience, and I know that many of you have been faithful watching us, and we thank you for your support. Again, we discuss some of the analysis that's happening in today's politics, and that's what we're going to be diving into tonight. There's a lot that goes on a weekly basis, daily basis, that
Hmm.
brings us to think about what is happening and what is happening not only in Washington but in our state capitals and local politics. So tonight we're going to touch a little bit of everything, but nevertheless, we want to say thank you for your faithful support and for watching us, because it is important for us to be able to talk about the issues that affect our communities, especially the working class, those people that struggle daily in their lives just to make ends meet. We think about them, we fight for them, we stand up for them, and this is why we're here. It's because the kind of politics that exist that continue to pull away and take away from our communities. So we want to make sure that our voices are raised, and we talk about that. But Jackie, I mean, of course, the talk of the week had been those Chinese balloons, the spy balloons, the weather balloons, whatever they want to call it. Your thoughts?
I honestly think I mean, the memes were awesome, but apart from that, in all seriousness, I think when it comes to being concerned about being spied on or whatever, like your phones are right there, and anybody at this point can get any of our information through any network that we have, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever. I think those are the concerns that a lot of people in government don't look into, that are way more, they're in the palm of their hands, and Alexa's there listening to you too. So to me, those are the ways that if anybody wanted to get into our network, cyber attack would be the way to do it. And I don't think a balloon is really that much of a concern compared to the networks that we have right at the tip of our fingers.
Exactly. And I like to say that there are literally billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that is spent in defense
Hmm.
when, our own enemy is within.
Yeah,
We see the fact that we have people that are elected into office that are more
exactly. Yeah.
dangerous than a balloon,
And they
you
have
know?
bypassed every security measure, you know what I mean? And I think when it comes to those issues, the United States and itself is deteriorating within its own borders. And I think when it comes to being concerned about security, right there in Congress, you have the in Supreme Court too, you have those concerns there. If anyone's going to be the destruction of America, it's going to be America itself.
Well, because we see the fact that we are destroying our own selves from within.
Yeah.
We see again the barriers that are broken. We see the kind of division that exists in Washington, that uh, you know uh, protections are removed from the people. The people have to struggle. The people have to literally struggle to survive, because the very people that get elected, push for policies that are dangerous, that are
White
criminal,
supremacist.
that in many times put people's lives at risk. So
Definitely.
yeah, we can talk about a balloon, and we could see how everything has been broken down, and the fact that it was so easy to penetrate into our space, you know but this is nothing new. There is
Hmm.
things that happens within that has been breaking down for a long, long time. But the fact of the matter is that our communities are broken, are falling apart. We have been left behind, and many people are at risk in their own lives.
I wish that we put as much energy to how corporations are really destroying our communities and are also ensuring monopolizing other companies to the point that our jobs are hurting. When we talk about utilities, when we talk about the prices of so many things that are so unaffordable now. I wish we put as much attention to those issues, to destroy those issues, as we did with this balloon, because I really think it was just one of those things where it's not as meaningful as the issues we're already tackling here, and that we should be actually uh, confronting in a better way than we are as of right now, very passively.
Right. Well, now the other news that are coming out regarding this balloon is that during the Trump administration, there was
Three others, yeah.
three other incidents in which balloons were actually flying in our airspace. So,
Yeah, I heard that too.
of course, we want to politicize this thing. We want to talk about, who's not doing their job. Both of them are not doing their job, in my
Yeah,
opinion. Both
yeah,
parties
I agree.
have not been doing their jobs. They have been lacking. They're spending the money where they're not supposed to be spending. And again, if you want to talk about, you know, security, if you want to talk about then whoever finding out what we're all about, that's too late, I think, because the fact, as you say, we have TikTok, we have social media, we have Siri, right, Alexa, we have all these
Like, I mean,
people listening.
I have to
Mhm.
say, to really, in the way that you can really know, because Cambridge Analytica, when it was used as a political tactic to get people to sway them to vote either way, I mean, every time you like something, every time you watch something and you replay it and you share it, those are things that psychologically, the algorithm and pretty much the system, just the AI, really starts to get to know you and get to know how you think, get to know what you believe, get to know how you feel. And those are things that are already happening, and third parties can have access to that information. There's a lot of things that are happening just online that, if you're not too careful, when you click accept all cookies, when you're not careful what you're clicking, doing those little online games on Facebook that what your personality like, and all these things, they're capturing all the information about you to the point that they really know you. You see ads that you are appealed to because they know what you like, they know what you think. And I think that's more dangerous, because at that point they have a portfolio on you. And you can take it how you want to. You can be paranoid about it, you can be just know that that's happening, or you can be very careful about it and just be able to have VPNs and security measures. But those are the kinds of things that are not talked about in Congress, because a lot of the senators, a lot of the people in the House, they don't even understand how far any of the cyber technologies are really developing. And it's so quick to the point that we don't really have any laws that protect us against even third parties taking our information and really doing something about it, to the point you have extreme measures like QAnon and what happened January 6th, things that are still being planned by white supremacist groups. Those are things that, if we actually were serious about national security, we would be having things in place that would protect us from our information being captured, to the point it gets really, really scary. Even Black Mirror-ish. So if you watch the show Black Mirror, you would know what I'm talking about when it comes to them reading actually your mind in the way that they kind of can track some of your thoughts, as I said. So those are things that they're not talking about. And I wish they did. And we're still slow to even enact any policy that can really protect people when they're using things online.
Right. Well, and then we also got to remember that our own government be spying on the people,
That too.
right?
We still have the Patriot
Our own
Act.
government be taking so much information from us. It's like, you know, we got to look at this whole thing in security in context as it is, the reality. The
Yeah.
fact that everybody's spying on everybody, they got so much information. We don't know who's got what, and so on and so forth. But this is again another of those things that we're gonna be spending. We're gonna. I am sure government already going to our Congress already moving to see how much money they can get to add to the already over floated or bloated uh, defense budget, right? They're going to ask
Hmm.
for more. They're going to say,
Yeah,
well,
that's
and that's what's going to happen.
yeah. Yeah, and they're already kind of having some momentum in the Philippines. So, it's one of those things where they're already having momentum in military strategy just to kind of enhance their budget. And another thing I want to point out when it comes to national security, I think when it came to even COVID, it wasn't taken like a national security issue. It was like, oh, well, the pandemic kind of is here. Once the vaccine rolled out, it wasn't that much of a security issue when it really is. And we still don't even have a really good public health force in the United States. We didn't really learn anything from this pandemic. And with climate change, we're going to be seeing more illnesses and infectious diseases going up. That is where I believe if we actually believed and wanted national security, let's think about health and securing people's health with Medicare for all, first of all, and then also a public health force that can have a strong pandemic response for next time. It's not going to be next 100 years. Climate change has been showing that 30 that within the last 30 years we have been seeing diseases that are 5 times increasing the rate of how many new viruses we're seeing and how many new bacteria we're seeing. So we have to be conscious that climate change is national security issue. These pandemics are a national security issue. That's where our money should be going if we're really serious about securing anything.
Right, exactly. So again, what we are seeing is a lot of talk. Everybody blaming each other.
Hmm.
Republicans saying you should have shut it down sooner, so on and so forth. Uh,
Just a lot
but
of
but again,
circus.
yeah, it is their focus is so so wacky, and not again, we're not surprised at this because it's all about attacking each other,
Hmm.
and in the meantime the people keep being left behind and left behind. Let's talk about eggs, the cost of eggs. Why don't we talk about that? You know what I mean? Let's talk about the fact that people cannot, students cannot make their payments, their
Yeah.
educational payments. Let's talk about that. Let's move speedily on that. If you're going to attack about each other, outdo each other, who's going to do more for students? Why is it that we talk about that? We still have the same problems at the border. Why is it that this is not election time right now? So now they kind of softening up, they're kind of taking back steps, they're talking about other issues. But when it comes to the election cycle again, all of a sudden we're going to start hearing about the border. you
Yeah.
know why don't we talk about those 11 million dreamers that need to be that need to have a pathway to citizenship? Let's talk about that. Let's bring solutions to that. But that's not important right now. The balloon is important. Why it was not shut down faster?
There will always be something more performative for them to distract themselves and us with than there is always going to be legislation. And the thing is, a lot of the extremists that really got into office are not the only problem. It's always going to be in the corporate interest for borders and restrictions on immigration to exist because that's how labor is controlled. That's how resources are controlled. So there's a lot of underlying sinister policies going on just to benefit corporate power as well. And those are the things that we also have to remember, that these conversations are not going to really happen as easily, because there are nobody's really lobbying for this as hard as with any other issue. So those are kind of the things that I've also noticed, right? Like in Congress, you'll have a lot of more bills presented or just initiatives presented that are being lobbied or that are being pushed. Um, and because of Citizens United, we also see that effect, that a lot of people's voices and special interests for the people are not as heard and are not as pressured as there are when a bill like the corporations, for example, favoring a tax reduction, or cutting our benefits or doing those kinds of things that benefit corporations. Those are always going to be the bills that are going to be the first and foremost to come into the floor to be even spoken about.
Right. Well, right now there is a lot of talk in Congress regarding crime, for example.
Yeah, that's
You
another
know,
one. Yeah.
and the thing about it is that, when they talk about crime, they talking about the crime that we see perhaps in some of our communities, that crimes of the people, but they never
Hmm.
want to talk about the crimes of the Wall Street. They never want to talk about the white collar crime. They never want to talk about wage theft. They never want to
Yeah.
talk about the crimes that the billionaires are committed against the people. That's what we need to
Hmm.
talk about. If we want to talk about crime, if we want to talk about the seriousness of the unsafe America, let's talk about the crimes that corporate America is committed against the people. That's what we need to talk about. Let's talk
Yeah.
about, police brutality, the crimes of the
Hmm.
police. We need to talk about that because those are real and those are happening.
And
And
yeah.
yeah, you could talk about we need to bring more money for defense or for policing and all that, but if you are not addressing the real root of the problems, then you're just doing nothing.
Yeah, and I think from what I've seen, right, is that I think the petty crimes that happen in the street, those are things that people can immediately see, and then having more police is something people can immediately see, and those are always going to be the things that these politicians push for, just to give people the peace of mind to, oh look, I'm doing something, because policies actually take time. When it comes to initiating healthcare, you're not going to see the benefits till 10 years after that policy. Of course, it's going to have a longer impact and a better impact those 10 years after. And you're going to see the slow reduction in crime and slow reduction in people's hunger and people's need for housing or whatever it is that they need. And with that comes lesser crime. But again, that comes in a 10-year period. Whereas having just more police is like, oh, you immediately just put more police and people can see that. But that is always a way to just kind of get people to feel like, oh, they did something, right, as I mentioned. But yeah, when it comes to also wage theft, I feel like a lot of media outlets don't really talk about that as much and don't really pressure much as those stories, because police also has a lot of control over media and news media and what they kind of want people to know that is happening in their city. But imagine if they knew that here in LA and California, about $3 billion is being $2 billion a year is estimated. Sorry, of crime that is wage theft, and that some people may be victims of this and not even know it. And it comes with forms of unpaid overtime. It comes from low wage workers that are immigrants, people of color, who may not be paid by their employer, or also breaks that the people don't get. Lunch breaks or unpaid time that they left for sick leave. So many things that are on that radar that fall under wage theft, and nobody really knows. And it's $2 billion a year in California alone. So we're talking about a lot more money being lost to workers than you ever see for petty wage, petty like car theft or petty whatever other crime. But those are always the stories that are always going to be talked about because there's some type of influence of the police really having on media that gets those stories to be somehow more exciting and more views. I don't know, but that's kind of what it seems like to me.
Right. I mean, we gotta understand that, the attacks on the working class are more real than anything else. The fact that our workers are constantly under attack to try to see how they can take away from them, to try to minimize the the benefits that workers should be receiving. These are the constant battles that we see happening, all the time. Uh, right now, we just went through these really huge storms. Why are we not talking about how we protecting the farmers, the farm workers,
That
rather?
too.
The farm workers. These people have to be out there working under all kinds of severe weather conditions. Yet, we don't talk about how the weather affects them and what is being done to protect them. So although they want to bring up things that stir up the passions of the people, but those things are usually in a perspective that will favor corporate America, that will distract from the real issues, from the root of the problem. Workers are facing very difficult times right now. Jackie, rent is high, the cost of food is
Too damn
high,
high.
transportation is high, clothing is high. You name every single
Hmm.
thing, and I don't even understand how some people are making ends meet, because again, we have policies, and you hit it right in the nail. We have policies that hurt the people and are doing nothing, to build up our communities. Those are
Yeah.
the facts right there.
Definitely. And honestly, when you talked about farm workers, that's another point to make. The crimes that corporations are doing against just workers themselves when it comes to conditions. After that, the Moonbay shooting, I guess Gavin Newsom found out of how horrible the working conditions were for farm workers. And yet, Gavin, are you doing anything about it? Because really, it just seems like people are shocked about how horrible working conditions are, and then nothing is ever really done about it. And we know that farm workers have one of the most gruesome conditions here, even in California, where a lot of politicians pride themselves to be really progressive, to be blue, whatever, Democrats and liberals. But when it comes to policy and protection of workers, I mean, Gavin Newsom even took a long time to sign that bill for farmers to be able to unionize. And so it begs the question, right? When it comes to measures like healthcare, like social housing, that's going to be also hopefully introduced, things like this that would work for people, and we're in a very blue state. And a lot of the Democrats pride themselves to be progressive. And honestly, a lot of it's performative progressive talk. But where are those measures? A lot of people also say that, California is California and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, you guys, this is not even close to what some people want to say about our policies being progressive or whatever, because we don't see them. CalCare would have passed last year if Newsom actually did what he said that he was going to pass single payer. A lot of these politicians would actually advocate to improve working conditions, to improve all they say that they champion right now, because we're in a blue state. We talk about Congress, the Republicans having power and why things aren't moving, but what is happening in California, right? We need more progressive politicians. We need more progressive people who actually stand by what they believe in and actually stand by working class, because it just doesn't seem to me that there's, even if California is blue, that we're actually going towards a way of working class improvements.
Right. And see, when we're talking about, and there was a big discussion and some voting actually that took place regarding socialism,
Yeah.
And
So
again,
silly.
those are distractions.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about, yeah, you could vote all you want on whatever you want to, but if you're not doing your job,
Hmm.
and we have people sleeping on the streets, and we have people that are left behind because they are living in extreme poverty, you could call yourself democracy, you could call yourself Republican, Democrat, you could call yourself whatever, means nothing,
Yeah. I
you
want to see the
know,
actions.
because the
What's
people are
action?
left behind. Our citizens are hurting. Our communities are hurting. So what, doesn't matter what you vote on. The fact of the matter is that we
Hmm.
need more social programs, safety nets. We need to make sure that our people are being taken care of. That's what democratic socialism is all about. But you want to fall for those lies and all these talking points, trying to attach a word to communism, when in fact you are more communist by your actions than the real communists, because you're taking away from the poor, you're destroying our communities with your policies. You are the dangerous person. You that taking these votes that really push our people into deeper poverty.
Yeah, and honestly, like what I think was fun, what I find is funny is because McCarthy is the leader right now. And the whole McCarthyism was happened in the 50s. And I'm like, how funny, McCarthyism. And then here we go with McCarthy leading this as like, oh, who denounces socialism? And I'm like, it's kind of funny because it kind of rhymes, but regardless of that, it also comes with the whole banning of books. Like, I don't know, the Republicans really are funny and don't really realize that when it comes to banning books, when it comes to wanting to ban healthcare procedures that people need, be it abortion, be it transgender care, whatever it is, I think like if we're gonna denounce something, let's denounce fascism. Like who denounces fascism, right? Because that is kind of weird that they're going after like socialism when there's like not even really an ounce of it in the United States. And then here we go where there's actual fascists in Congress and House. So I would want to see a vote who denounces fascism, because that's going to be a lot more of a test to see who wants to take our First Amendment right away and who wants to take our autonomy away. I think that's where the real danger is at.
Exactly. When you passing policies that takes away the First Amendment rights of the people, it's like, are you scared of the books? Is that what you're scared of?
And I
Are
read
you
a lot
scared
of
of the
those
fact
books.
that you know Black history teaches about Black Lives Matter? That's part of history, folks. And
And
if you want
native
to erase
history.
that, you're not going to be able to erase it. That's embedded right now into the lives of all the Black Americans, and also our communities that saw what happened, that have
Hmm.
seen the extreme poverty that the Black community lives on.
Yeah,
So you
there's
want to talk about removing certain text or certain words, because it doesn't fit your criteria, or it doesn't fit your agenda. The fact is that, again, we're not going to go away. We're not going to go away. History will not go away. You cannot erase history. This is what happened. How America came to be is real. The,
yeah.
the slaughtering of Native Americans is real. It happened. You cannot ignore that. You cannot erase that.
And the
You know,
continuation of trying to erase natives through continuing to have the reservations with lack of water, lack of education, lack of so many fundamental things that they need to survive. And those are kinds of things that when we talk about the conditions that we're living in today, how is it that everything is organized and why things exist, right? The way that they do, like the policies, we have to look at a history. And as I mentioned, policy takes like 10 years for it to have an effect. And also policy really does embed into our lives 50 years after. I mean, Reagan's policies are still affecting students today when it comes to tuition, when it comes to healthcare insurances. Nixon's policies affected us there. So those are a lot of things that when we talk about why is our healthcare system so messed up, Look at just the early 1900s and who stopped universal health care from happening. Those are all things that if we actually learned our history on labor and unions and all of these things, I think the understanding would be so much different and people would vote so much different, that we know that these types of controlling measures on education and what we can talk about and what we can, and even punishing librarians and professors, really is telling that they are afraid, because they know that the more that kids have learned and read books that really tell the entire truth, that it makes a lot of us question the fundamentals of what United States is, and the whole manifest destiny like mythology that a lot of the Americans believe in is really embedded in white supremacy and in genocide. So when those kinds of things are challenged, and the rosy petaled history of the United States is also challenged, it starts to really give you so many realizations of why we are in the state that we are in today. That's only possible if you really have uncensored history, which is not really in the benefit of the white supremacists who feel that we're going to replace them. So it goes just a whole loop around of different policies that they want to ensure are not going to transpire against them, and that will empower us to really change the system and change how everything is done. So knowledge is power, and that's kind of what they want to avoid.
Right. And Jackie, I like was looking really. I'm paying attention to some of the actions that are coming right now, especially from the Republican Party, and uh, you know we got to look to Florida, because that is where in my opinion, we have one of the strongholds of the agenda that they are going to try to
Hmm.
push throughout
Yeah.
America, through DeSantis, and the kind of mentality that he presents.
Yeah.
As you know, they're not rallying behind Donald Trump. He's falling in the polls, and we're seeing the rise of DeSantis.
This is what we
Uh,
feared. Remember, we talked about this.
Right. And because look at the policies that he's pushing,
Hmm.
look at the words, look at what he's saying. And this is exactly where they're going with all this.
Yeah, did you see that they took over a college called New College? It was an
Right.
LGBTQ space,
Right.
and they took over. And that is what fascism is, if anybody was wondering.
Right. So we're supposed to be having the State of the Union, and they already have announced that the new governor of Indiana, Huckabee, uh, you know her. She used to be Trump's uh, press secretary. She's now governor. She's going to
Hmm.
be issuing the response to uh, to the State of the Union. But have you seen what she's been pushing for? Exactly the same thing as DeSantis.
And that's going to be their agenda.
Nothing
Yeah.
but hate policies against LGBT, against Hispanics, uh, against the poor. This is their agenda, people. This is what they're all about. And we're going to see even more of that coming, as we enter into the next uh, uh, election cycle, which is 2024. So
Yeah.
everybody's lining up themselves.
Hmm.
But the fact is that uh, the agenda right now is being controlled by extreme right wing individuals, and again, people that hide themselves behind the mantle of Christianity, that bring policies that are opposite to what Jesus Christ actually taught. These are policies that pretty much are against the poor. These are policies that are hateful, anti-immigrant. Those are policies that are
Xenophobic.
that are
Islam.
not Christian-like. If you want to, hide yourself behind the mantle of Christianity, these are opposite of what Christians supposed to be doing. But that's who are driving the policies right now on the Republican Party.
Yeah, and it is kind of scary to see sometimes people who are not really as politically I don't know if I the word aware would say, because they're not really like involved. They say they don't care about politics. But then you see them pretty much sharing things about Trump and being like, yeah, maybe I like what he's saying because like Trump was talking to like against transgender people. And then you're kind of like, wait, you are going to compromise all of the other things that have to do with us and like working conditions and labor and our fundamental rights, just overall, because you don't like transgender people. Like, you're going to go now to the right because for some reason transgender people bother you so much that you would vote Republican because of that. Like, that's kind of very silly. I just feel like it's so silly and so telling of homophobia and everything, transphobia, that people will even tilt to that side because of this one thing that they just don't feel that they like. And it's like, really, like, is that really how a lot of Republicans are getting you guys? Like, it's so just wild to me that some people really fall for that. And that's kind of how you can tell as well that some people really have some hatred for certain groups of people, that they'll vote against their own interests just to be able to eradicate Native people, to eradicate trans people, to eradicate Black people, whoever it is that they don't like, just because of that one thing that they're saying. And this is sad because in all essence, like, we're all oppressed. We're working class, but
Right.
we also have to be very conscious of uh the different types of people who are within the working class and are struggling, and that everyone, regardless of if you like them or not, that we're all really within the same battle. And I hope people open up their minds, because this is not how you want to vote just because you hate a group. If you vote out of hate, I feel really sorry for you, because they're really going to get us so easily, distract us with this cultural wars because they somehow got you with those hatred of words that you somehow agree with. And that's kind of what they said. Oh, it's because I kind of agree with what he's saying. And I'm like, but you would really compromise, again, your self-interest and everything because you don't like them? I don't know, Carlos. I don't know. What do
Well,
you think about that? Have you
well,
heard people
the
talk
thing
about
is
that?
that if you take a look at the way they drive their talking points, you're correct. They try to put people against each other. We see
Yeah.
that, the kind of language and talking points they use against immigrants. They want to make you
Mhm.
fearful of them.
Yeah,
They
they're taking
coming
your
for your
jobs.
jobs. Right. They're taking your jobs away. There's so many jobs out there, people. There's a lot of work out there. And usually the work that they come and do are really the work that a lot of people don't want to do. But yet they drive these talking points,
They do.
making you feel that these people are evil, are bad. They're taking away, they're stealing from you. They're
No,
not doing none of that.
and you know what? One thing that actually does concern me too is climate change is pretty much here. And a lot of folks have been like, oh, the water in California is also an issue because the immigrants are taking the water. And I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
Oh my God. And
Right.
those are kind of the things that worry you, right? Because when climate change becomes worse and resources are scarce, or like we need rescue teams or whatever, like, the poor people and people who are marginalized are going to be the last ones, or will die. So this is more worrisome when it comes to actual policy that affects people, because you're like, okay, these people are being attacked right now and it just seems like a overseeing thing. But when it comes to immigration reform, when it comes to actually having policies, for example, the border being closed is not a good idea, because people usually cannot go back and they stay here. But if you talk to a lot of people, like in my family or other folks that I've talked to in the community, they're like, I just want to work here for like a little while and then go back and then come back for work and then go back home. Like, I don't want to be here forever. Like, they don't even like it here. But some people do like it here and they want to contribute, they want to go to school, they want to do whatever. And people that you if we would have an immigration reform that would allow people to come back and work and do whatever, or stay here and study whatever it is needed, we would have more overseeing of who it is who's coming, being able to take care of people, having labor rights for them, ensuring that they're not working in the horrible conditions that they're working in right now, because a lot of people are afraid to speak up. And those are the jobs that a lot of people are saying that they're taking away. Jobs that don't have benefits, jobs that exploit people. Like, come on, people. Like, really think about that. If anything, they're being taken advantage of. And a lot of corporations are making way much more money by denying a lot of the benefits that they should be paying if people could have the ability to have a paper that said they were here legally. You know what I mean?
But Jackie, can you imagine if you come from another country, you know you've been struggling. I mean the conditions. If you think people here in the United States are living in poverty, you ought to see some of the conditions in other countries.
It's really,
You know
yeah.
that where these people are coming from. But can you imagine for a second that they actually are welcome here? They are allowed to come and work. They contribute. They pay taxes. They do
Yeah.
everything.
They have
They
benefits.
they're able to do everything the way we're supposed to do it, right? Then they start sending money to their country.
Yeah.
Then their own communities begin to become more stable,
That
where they
too.
don't need to be coming here because all of a
hmm
sudden, there is a connection now and they are taking care of their own people, right?
Exactly.
See,
Yeah.
these are the things that they don't tell you, or they don't want to think about. It's the fact that, there is a circle, the benefits, the communities where a lot of these people are coming from, the countries where they're coming from.
hmm
By us being able to give them an opportunity here, it strengthen their own communities out there. So there's no need for them to have to come here, because
Yeah.
now they're able to have resources. They're able to have, again, uh, money, so they can buy food, so that they can take care of their families. But as long as we continue to exploit them through corporate greed, and using policies in other countries to take
Yeah.
away from them, they have to survive. They have to find them. They need to go wherever the opportunities are, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
That is
Because,
that's why people come here, because
yeah. And
there's
I
no
mean,
opportunities out there.
and a lot of folks, in the Republican Party will never talk about imperialism, right? Like, as a
Right.
form of how it is that these countries are suffering. I really do think that if we had universal labor laws in all of our countries, and we had an understanding that workers all across the board deserve the best benefits, like sick pay and days off and the fair wages too, it would not be possible to have as much poverty. Imperialism is really causing a lot of the poverty in our countries in Latin America. And really, it's a colonial project. It's a lingering colonial project to keep people confined to certain working conditions. And they don't even benefit from the resources. A lot of those resources in their countries are being extracted to here. A lot of those amazing fruits that you see at Whole Foods, those are from Central America. Those are from, like, South America, Mexico, and a lot of the people there, they don't see those goods. You see them in white, wealthy neighborhoods over here, and people in even in our own countries lose out from those resources. And I'm not gonna get into the whole health outcomes of that, because that's a whole public health issue of obesity that is basically happening because of the extraction of healthy goods that countries are extracting to here, and then we ship the junk over there, and people have to eat it because that's the only food that they have accessible and that they can afford. So those are things that they just circle into the same policy of imperialism and extraction, and that it ultimately corporations pocket our community suffer, and then they try to find some way to make more money or to be safer from all of the crime that is happening because of the interventions that have happened throughout decades. So those are just things that will never be spoken in the Republican Party. They will always try to scare people through just scapegoating, and sometimes it's going to work because people are not really receptive to understanding the history of these problems.
Right. And Jackie, I gotta say, so we can just circle back and put all this that we've been saying into perspective, into focus, is that our focus as people should be in the policies that are being pushed right now in Washington
Mm-hmm.
and in our state capitals. Is these are policies that again protect corporate America.
Yeah.
These are policies that drive people into deeper poverty. That's what's happening right now. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to be paying attention to that because, it comes in disguise. It comes pretending that our policies to help the people when in fact are not. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if we want to talk about the issues that affect our communities, we need to talk about why is the rent so damn high. We need to talk about why is it that people will have to have a education that enslaves them for the rest of their lives. We need to talk about why is it that people cannot afford healthy food to eat. Why is it that our food banks are filled with leftovers
Mm-hmm.
and not healthy food, fresh healthy food.
And the food
We
waste,
need to talk
Carlos.
about, right. We need to talk about the fact that uh, we see that the levels of environmental destructions in our communities because of gentrification
Mm-hmm.
and how that's hurting a lot of people. And we need to talk about, the fact that small businesses are being driven out of business because of corporate America greed. Those are the things that we need to be focusing on and paying attention to and making sure that if any policy, is pushed, should be policies that will protect our communities, that protect the people, that build on safety nets, not take away from them. Right now, there's a lot of discussion about spending. I'm going to be hearing this for the
Yeah.
next year, folks. You're going to hear about spending, 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 but you are not going to hear about the fact that again, corporate and the billionaire class are not paying their fair share of taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to hear about that. You're going to hear about how they need to take away more of our safety nets, Social Security,
Yeah.
Medicare.
Or the
That's
education is going to
that's what
be.
they're coming after.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's such a sad realization that they want to cut Social Security when in the early 1900s seniors were the ones who advocated for this. Because a lot of seniors during that time in the early 1900s, they were pretty much like if you didn't have money or if you didn't have a family who had money, just like now, right? You would pretty much struggle and not know where to go or what to do. And a lot of seniors are also unhoused. So a lot of seniors back then, they were like, growing old is something of a right. It's a right. We should be able to grow old with dignity in this country. And that's how Social Security was passed. And basically what the Republicans and whoever wants to cut it, even the Democrats who are okay with cutting Social Security, you're pretty much telling all of those advocates and all of those seniors who fought hard for Social Security back in the day, you're telling them you do not have a right to grow old with dignity in this country. That's what they're telling them. And another thing that I actually found sad is like I found out from somebody I was talking to that they told me that they couldn't retire, not because they couldn't afford that their pension wasn't going to be able to help them pay for their housing or their payments like that, but because of healthcare, because they're not sure if they're going to be able to afford healthcare, so they have to continue working in the job they have to have healthcare benefits. That's so sad. That's telling me that somebody who can retire because of their age, right? They have the age that they can retire, but technically they cannot, because if they do, they cannot afford their health care. That's ridiculous. That's just this person also, by the way, is a veteran. So let's think about that too. Like a person who's a veteran cannot retire because they fear that they cannot afford Medicare. And
Yeah.
that's just so disgraceful.
I remember, Jackie, I remember when growing up, people used to talk about, oh yeah, You want to reach 55 so you can retire. So 65, 55 turn into 65 and soon 75. And we may end
Oh
up
wow.
seeing this 85 because people don't want to retire now. It's scary to retire. You know, the little money that you were able to save out may not be able to last you.
Yeah, I
The
do.
way the cost of living is, if you go to the food banks, the vast majority of the people that are standing in line at the food banks are seniors.
That is just
They
so
cannot make
sad.
any ends, people. It's
Look at the
sad.
I look at the French and look at them right now. They're like literally out in the streets because they want to raise the retirement age, I think, to 2 years or 3 years. And they're like, oh no, 62 is a cutoff, my friend. And they're out there fighting. And I just feel like we will let them increase. First of all, we're going to let them, uh, first of all, let me go back. I want to ask a question. Are we going to let them take away our social security? And are we going to let them raise the retirement age till we work to the bone? Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. I feel like we are so passive about this as a whole country that when I see countries like France fighting for like their pensions, their retirement age, and all of that, that is where the fight should be. These are things that if a country cares about you and wants you to be a patriot and all of these awesome things that they want to talk to you about, they would care about you living with dignity, and they don't.
Right.
They
You want
don't.
to talk about making America great again? Well, again, maybe we need to think about, telling people that they could retire when they are 55 years old. That's making America great again, so that they won't have to worry about the fact that they cannot pay their rent, or the fact that they cannot feed their families, or the fact that they could, hold on to the grandchildren and tell them you don't have to worry about education because we got your back. We cannot tell
Yeah.
that to our grandchildren. We
Hmm.
cannot say those things to our own children, because of the fact of the matter is that our children are knocking on the door, coming to see if they can stay with us because they cannot afford their rent. Those are the
Yeah.
realities American is living in. So you cannot tell me that America is great, that we take care of our own people, because we don't know how to take care of the poor. We don't know how to take care of the working class.
Well,
We
they
don't
don't
know
want
how to
to.
take care of seniors. We don't know how to take care of students. We don't know how to take care of our children. When we have guns running and killing people everywhere, but you have Congress people running around with lapels with a freaking gun in their lapels. That's the insanity in Washington that we are living in.
I think going back to Florida, teachers are allowed to have a gun in their classrooms and they're not allowed to have certain books. So it's one of
Right.
those things where I'm like, oh my god, this is a dystopia. Like I have to say, I've been a fan of dystopia ever since I was a teen. I loved reading dystopias and watching dystopias and everything. And then I'm like, I'm living in dystopia. So it's like not that exciting to to live through. I just see the pattern though. I see the patterns, and a lot of the stuff I used to watch was fiction, but this isn't fiction, and this isn't getting prettier. I think though, what I do think though is that because of these kinds of scenarios that we're seeing and experiencing, especially because Roe v. Wade was overturned, and we're also seeing transgender people being attacked through healthcare and just things like this that are culture wars, right? But they do mean something to some people, especially if you're affected in those groups. I feel like those kinds of things are also making people realize, like, maybe I should definitely vote next time. Maybe I should get more involved. So I have hope in one way, realizing that some people may look at that and may be aware that they should be involved. But at the same time, there are also, as we mentioned with social media and all those algorithms, there are dangers of people being involved to join the extremes. So we should just keep that in mind as well when we're going through social media. The posts that we're seeing, the things that whoever politician or influencer was talking about really is a strategy for radicalization of the right when they come about talking about really extreme things that have to do with people's identity, people's healthcare, people's just immigration status, all of that. So we have to be just conscious of that too, that there's also hope for people to be involved, but there's also potential dangers of people becoming an extremist on the right. And we see that with January 6th. We see that with so many shootings as well. So those are just some things to take in mind when looking at the big picture on all of this.
Yes, agree with you. And our time is coming up, Jackie. But just before we close tonight, we need to talk about also the recent decision by the Democratic Party to change some of the rules regarding the primary
Oh,
elections that
yes.
are coming up, because this was a very skillful decision by the Biden administration, in my opinion,
Hmm.
because it will actually favor him. So what they did is they pretty much changed the rules, who's going to go first on the primaries. And Iowa was traditionally for decades the the state that will hold the first primary. This was moved now to South Carolina. If you remember in 2020 when Joe Biden was losing the elections to Bernie Sanders, it was in South Carolina that there was a big decision by uh, by the folks in South Carolina, the the Black Caucus, to support him, and this is when that big change came, and he put him over the top. So this, in our opinion, is very calculative for Joe Biden to be able to push for this, and for the Democratic Party to push for this, because it will give him the upper hand when it comes to 2024. This is where his strength is. If you leave it the way it is right now, he will be an underdog, and he will have a very difficult time for many different reasons. Yes, he has
Hmm.
done some good things, but he has done some things that are not too good, and some horrible things too. So the fact of the matter is that he will struggle. He's going to struggle, in our opinion, in 2024. But these decisions pretty much tilts the scale in his favor because of the black vote, and putting South Carolina first will give him the edge,
Mm,
so that he can look as if he is coming in strong. That's what we
yeah.
think has happened here with this vote and this particular move by the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it definitely does sway people also in other states eventually to vote or to even consider voting, quite honestly. Like sometimes when you see other people kind of already winning, you're like, oh, well, I mean, it's a primary. Why should I even vote? I mean, it looks like that guy's already getting it. And then that kind of just sways a lot of people because, as we saw with Bernie Sanders, a lot of people also felt like there was a lot of things being moved around to favor other candidates, and then the people dropping out of the primary to pretty much give more boost to Joe Biden at that point. So there's definitely tactics that the Democrats do make, and they do have their favorites. I mean, they already kind of pinpoint which candidates they're going to want, and they're going to be in their pocket because it's easier to whip votes like that.
Right, right. So our time is up, Jackie. But time really goes fast when you're having fun. And for us, being able to talk about these things that have been happening throughout the week, uh, it's also really important to us, because we want folks out there to be educated. We want you to know what's happening, and we need to stay focused. We have a lot coming up this week. There's things that are happening on the ground everywhere. We're going to continue to monitor the news and the stories, and talking to our friends, our community leaders, our advocates, whether they're fighting for housing or climate change or healthcare. We are in conversations with many people, not only here in California, but throughout the United States. This is what we do. And this is why we're able to pretty much uh, get a lot of information. And we try to bring you the latest, and we try to stay in point. We're not perfect. We're not trying to say that we are representative of the leaders of the movement or nothing like that.
We're doing
It's
our
not even close to
best.
that. We just two voices here that speak in behalf of the people.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. And yeah, I mean, to piggyback on that, yeah, I mean, I have a full-time job and I'm also advocating for abortion care all the time because that is pretty much what I do on my full time. So when it comes to these things, I have to keep up with everything just as everyone else does, and I'm looking at not only what people are saying, but also analyzing, because in this show we want to analyze those points. So it does take a lot of understanding as well that we're not perfect, but we are looking at these moments with all of you and analyzing and having conversations with our friends too, and then coming here and talking about it to share that, because I feel the more we talk and the more we share with each other, the stronger we can be to understand where we need to go in order to have a better force of our movement move forward. And we've seen it here in LA, we see it in so many other states, that when we do organize and we get our politicians into power, it does make a difference, and especially in our local communities. And for those who can and have extra time, joining neighborhood council and doing a lot of things like that will reinforce our voices in those spaces where a lot of the times a lot of people are not involved, and we need just more people involved into those roles, even no matter how small they are.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being part of this, Jackie. I appreciate you so much. I'm inspired by you as a young person that dedicates yourself not only to serve your community, but also to stay in touch with others, and making sure that people all around you are doing well. This is what we are all about, folks. We want to thank you for watching. We here every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. We are Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss analysis, strategy for the progressive movement. We thank you. We're coming from Los Angeles tonight. And anything else you would like to say as we close this broadcast, Jackie?
No, nothing really to say other than we're in February now, so let's gear up because the year is going to really pass by fast.
Yes. So again, we want to thank you for watching tonight. Have a good beginning of the week starting tomorrow, and we hope to see you
Yes.
here next Sunday. Tell your friends about this broadcast. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like us. We're here for you, and we'll continue to bring the issues that affects the working class. Good
Bye,
night.
everyone. Have a good night.